Hello, this is Sarah's Living with MS. I have learned so much about MS symptoms just in the short time since I've started this channel. So much from others that have messaged me and commented on my videos, and from my new MS neurologist. And I really wanted to share some important information that I've learned since then. There are many overlooked symptoms. It is easy to dismiss symptoms because they may not seem bad, or they may come and go, or it may seem like another issue not related to MS at all. My very first symptom, when I really think about it and go back, was that I would trip down the stairs more than what you would think is normal for a person to do. I think everyone just thought I was klutzy, and if I would have told my doctor, they probably would have thought the same thing. I almost really injured myself a few times and would drop things if I was trying to hold them at the same time as walking up or down the stairs. I also ignored a bad symptom of eye partial blindness. I did mention this in a previous video, so I won't get too detailed about it, but it was like a black spot in one of my eyes, and it slowly got smaller and smaller, and it went away. And honestly, this is probably really silly, but I had a really bad cold when I got it, and I thought that I blew my nose too hard, and that's where I got it from. I thought I did something to my eye, and that it'd probably just go away. It was probably no big deal. And then it did go away, so I thought it was fine. I just went on with my life and forgot about it. With MS, there are just so many different types of symptoms and different types of MS, so it can be really hard to diagnose it. I have had some new symptoms that I wanted to share and add to my list, because one of them is very rare to have for MS, but just because it's rare doesn't mean that it's not MS. And maybe it's not as rare as I think. I also learned that I have a new symptom that I never even associated with MS. When I had my last appointment with my new neurologist, I also saw a physical therapist, and they advised me of a new symptom that I never even realized was MS. They advised me that I have weakness in my left leg, but I have noticed this weird kind of quivering feeling that I have in the back of my upper thigh. It comes and goes away. There's not really any reason why it would start or go away. It just comes and goes, and it's really annoying. It's not necessarily pain. It's just an annoying feeling that's close to pain, but it's not. It makes me worried that my left leg will start to have like the severe issues that my right leg does with walking. I have never associated this feeling with MS, but when they tested me for weakness and told me that it was weak, it really made more sense. So I'm going to add that to my list. If you have seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I've also had seizures and also possibly having subclinical seizures. So I won't talk too much about it, but it's not a common symptom of MS and could be related to the medication that I was taking. But they couldn't rule that out. And since these subclinical seizures are not PML, because I was tested for that, and they could be happening daily, so it's looking more like an MS issue. I do see my neurologist soon and have another MRI coming up in a few months, so I should get some answers on that. Seizures can be caused by an MS lesion in a certain area of the brain. I have learned that since I have had them. Some other symptoms of MS that you should be aware of, because they're not always associated with MS, are a feeling of your body going to sleep on and off and seemingly coming out of nowhere and then going away completely and never happening again. I had this as one of my earlier symptoms before I was diagnosed, and I thought it was a pinched nerve. But I also noticed it would happen during times of stress or when I was really nervous, but then they just went away and I never had them again. To include some symptoms that I've heard from others that they messaged me about, include the MS hug. I personally have not had that, but people have messaged me about it. But I heard it feels like a tight, claustrophobic feeling, a feeling of tightness in your chest. I've also heard you can have an itch that you cannot scratch and you can never make go away. I personally have never had that, thank goodness. That sounds horrible, but it is something that you should be aware of. So thankful I've not had that, and I've actually never heard of that until people messaged me about it. A lot of people are really sensitive to heat and hot weather and getting too warm. I am actually the exact opposite of that. I'm really sensitive to cold, and it's hard for me to walk in the cold outside, and when I get too cold inside, I just hate cold. This is not as common as the heat, but that doesn't mean that it's not MS. Also, a very common symptom is a bladder issue. Other symptoms include a pain or weird sensation in any joint. If it's your wrist, it can make it very hard to write. and you may think it's carpal tunnel. Also, a weakness feeling, any weakness feeling in any joint. This is a symptom that I have, but for me, I never thought of it as a weakness feeling. For me, it felt like a weight was wrapped around my leg, making it very difficult to walk or lift my leg up. Another eye symptom can be double vision. This can come and go, maybe when you're tired or times of stress, or it can last all throughout the day. I've also had a cold right hand, cold wrist, cold ankle and foot, and right leg. There's really no rhyme or reason or time of the day. It'll just happen on and off. It doesn't really seem to have a trigger for me. There are so many more symptoms. It's really hard because MS is such a snowflake disease. It can be really hard to tell if you're having an MS symptom or a symptom of something else. So it's very important to document it. Keep a pain, weird sensation diary. Write down the date and the symptom, and that's it. See how it goes. Don't hesitate to call and make an appointment with your doctor. Don't put off seeing a doctor like I did. These early symptoms can go away and you can forget all about them. And you may either forget about it or you may associate it with something else. Sometimes you don't realize that you have these symptoms and they can add up. And that's why it's really important to document them and have them all written down so that when you do see a doctor, you have everything right there. Demand that your doctor takes you seriously. It's very important. There are a few tests that can be done to get diagnosed with MS, but it's really up to your neurologist what tests you need. You do not need all of them to get a proper diagnosis. The most important thing I learned is to document your symptoms and speak up for yourself. Go to the doctor with someone so you don't forget anything that you may have written down or that you've talked to them about, and they can help support you with that. They can help you with questions that you want to ask the neurologist and history of your symptoms. The doctor then can go through all this and recommend the best tests to make a proper diagnosis. I am not a neurologist. I just want to make sure that you get the help that you need. Some of the tests that you might have to have done is a spinal tap, although I did get diagnosed without it, so you may not have to get one. It's definitely not a fun test, but if you do end up having to get one, ask questions because there are different types. I didn't know this. And you'd want to get the guided faster one, unlike me. When recently I had to get one for a different issue to find out if I had PML, I had to get the spinal tap done twice because the first time it was unsuccessful and it was about 3 hours long. The second time I had it done, it was guided and quick and wasn't that bad. Another very important test is an MRI. Now these definitely are not fun either, but they are very important. There are natural calming methods or prescription drugs that you can take. And you can get through it. Trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. I have extreme claustrophobia. I think the first spinal tap I had, I fell asleep. They let me have headphones and they let me pick the music genre. So I picked something that I liked, but not something that I love because I didn't want to associate good music with getting an MRI, but also music I didn't hate. So it wouldn't bother me the whole time. It wasn't until the very end that it really started to get to me. And that was my first one. And it was 4 hours long because they did a full brain and my spinal cord with and without contrast. I mean, it was definitely not fun, but it was very important information. And I'm really glad that I did it. I have a lot of lesions on my spinal cord. So sometimes just a brain MRI is not enough. There is also an eye test that they can do, but your neurologist is going to know what the best tests for you are based on the information that is provided. It's very important and helpful to know what's going on. So don't wait to see a doctor as long as I did. And take it from me. If you don't like the doctor that you're seeing, see a different one. There are a lot of good doctors out there and it can be so frustrating. Know that you're not alone. There are so many of us that have been through this. If you can, and there's one in your area, see a MS neurologist. The difference is huge. I wish I would have known that back in 2017 when I was first diagnosed. It can be so scary to get that diagnosis, but it's going to be okay. It affects everyone differently. And there are so many things out there now that can help us. And there are so many new technologies that they're working on and new treatments that they're working on. And there are so many different ways and improvements that you can make to enjoy and have a great life. Thank you so much for watching. Please visit my channel for earlier episodes I have with my life with MS. Please like and subscribe. And if there is anything that you ever want me to do a video on, please let me know.